guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Effie. Today I have Kate from Kate's Almost Great. That's her blog name, and she's also on Instagram by the same name. But she has other links, and that will be included in the description box below. So make sure to check out all that and more if you want to connect with her after this video chat we're doing today. So I actually met Kate at HealtheVoices, which is a conference that brings together advocates from all over the country and I believe the world, right?
Yeah, I think the year that you and I met, there was someone from Scotland there.
Oh, yeah, 2019, and we met briefly there. And I remember you coming to the dinner. So there was a dinner there, right? And so this conference basically brings people together of all different health condition areas to learn how to be a better advocate, I would say, or connect with others, network, empower one another through different events and things that they have going on there. So it's kind of hard to explain. I don't know, maybe you can do a better job, but we went out with the arthritis clinic and it was dinner, and you actually came with a little booty on your ankle. You had surgery, right? And so I remember you saying, I wasn't going to miss this. And I was like, wow, this girl's so brave. I would never personally go on a plane after I had surgery. I would be too scared. So, today we're going to talk about kind of how to be a better advocate in your care when it comes to talking to your rheumatologist. And I just want to ask, prior to that conference, did you ask your orthopedic surgeon and your rheumatologist to go to the conference, or did you sort of make that decision on your own? Were they supportive of it?
So the year that you and I met was almost a year after I had the actual surgery.
Okay.
But because of my RA and the complication of the surgery, it was such a long recovery period. So I didn't have any issues that year. However, the year before, 2018, I had been invited to HealtheVoices, and I had to have this major foot surgery for my rheumatoid arthritis. And I also had the genetic condition tarsal coalition. And so it was a really big surgery, and HealtheVoices was 3 weeks after I had that surgery. And before I had the surgery, when I got invited to HealtheVoices, because for those who aren't aware, you apply, but then they try to get a bunch of people from across the conditions. So not everyone ends up being invited. But when I got the invitation, I realized how close it was to my surgery date. I asked my surgeon. He said, yeah, that should be fine. And then after I had the surgery, I was at his office for my 2-week post-op check. And I was like, hey, you said I could do this. And he was trying to walk it back so hard. And he was like, I don't know if I feel good about you going. And I was like, you told me yes. So it's either a problem and I don't go, or you quit whining and let me go. Like, you can't walk back on that after I've already said yes and had the surgery a week before, and it's a week before the conference. So I was given permission to go reluctantly, very reluctantly. And I had to, because I was completely non-weight bearing for like 6-8 weeks. And because of this and the flying, I had to get and bring with me injectable blood thinner medication. So anyone who has been hospitalized will have experience with, if you're being sedentary, they will give you that injection once a day if you're there for more than a couple of days. And so I had to get that and bring it with me. And I was like, I'm an RA patient. I've given myself injections before. I can totally handle it. I'm not going to miss this conference. And looking back, I'm just like, oh my gosh, why did I go? It was so difficult. It was so worth it, but it was so difficult because healing was so hard from that surgery overall. But that's just kind of, I've had a bunch of foot surgeries, and I was just like, I want to go, I want to do this. It's worth it. So he was initially supportive and then very unsupportive until I forced him into making a decision, and then he let me.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, this conference is at like different locations throughout the country. I mean, sometimes they have it in the same one. It's been in Dallas for the past few times, but because of what's going on now in the world, it's been virtual. So who knows? I think they're still going to have it be hybrid and allow that, opportunity to be available for people still to connect virtually or go in person. So who knows? But if anyone is interested in, your wanting to connect with others, definitely apply. But in any case, that just got me thinking, because when I was at a doctor's office once, a rheumatologist, there was this girl there and she was about to start a biologic. And I think she wanted to go travel somewhere. And I don't know if it was out of the country. Maybe it was Mexico, maybe it was somewhere else. And he was like, no, I would not go to a third world country on a medication. I mean, there's some people who consider some countries third world, but sometimes they aren't. But of course, when you go to different countries, they say don't drink the water, or don't do different things. But I've known people who've gone to like Africa, done missionary work, and they're on biologics. So that's why I wanted to ask if your rheumatologist was supportive of you going after a procedure. I mean, some aren't, some are, so that just got me wanting to kind of know,
Yeah.
you know.
So, my main treatment, which is a biologic, is the Rituxan infusion. And so that is an infusion I get every 3 months. And because, I mean, there was so much to factor in to go to HealtheVoices around that particular time. But in addition to the my foot surgeon, I had to have my Rituxan infusion. I shortly in that week between when I went to my orthopedic surgeon's office for a checkup and before when I left for HealtheVoices, because in order to recover in a way that didn't lead to infections, I had to be at the end of that 3-month cycle for my Rituxan. And so it was a very busy week. I had my post-op visit, my Rituxan infusion, recovery from the Rituxan infusion, leave for HealtheVoices. So it was very, very intense. But by and large, he was very supportive. Now, a lot of that is different now with the pandemic, but it's always more about what are the counts, the infection rates and everything. And honestly, if I am more likely to feel nervous about going somewhere because of COVID than I think my rheumatologist is, just because I'm so anxious and don't want to get COVID.
Yeah. No, I understand. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other topic. But I wanted to say, you've been on the rheumatoid arthritis scene for quite some time. When did you start your blog and when were you diagnosed? Because I remember your blog like floating around the internet when I was diagnosed, but I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, I was diagnosed in 2010 after being symptomatic for 9 years. And then I started my blog in 2013 with, I was sort of talking about a lot of different stuff, but arthritis advocacy was a part of it. And then over the course of 2013 to 2019, I started focusing more and more on health than about other topics. And now I'm fully focused on health and things that are affected by health. So food, clothes when you have chronic pain, tips for working or going back to work after not working for a couple of years, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because your blog was one of the first ones I saw before I even created my own. And this was before 2016. So that's why it's so nice to talk to you, because I'm like, oh my God, I felt like a fangirl even at HealtheVoices, seeing all these people. I'm like, I know you from online,
It was that kind of experience going to HealtheVoices. It's just like, oh my God, that's so-and-so from Instagram. Oh, that's so-and-so from their blog. I'm such a big fan.
Yeah, it really is. It's just funny. I don't know. Yeah. So you were one of those people for me. On Instagram too, you share a lot of tips. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring you on here today, because there was one thing that you shared that I'm like, I wish I had this when I was diagnosed. You basically broke down things that you write down when you are about to have an appointment. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So like a lot of people, going to the doctor can be very anxiety filled for me, whether it be because I'm nervous about if they're going to believe me, if I'm nervous about like, oh, are my inflammation rates higher or whatever. There are so many reasons. And not only that, but also I have fibromyalgia in addition to rheumatoid arthritis, so I get fibro fog, and so it can be hard to keep track of things. So for those two reasons especially, I try to write down a couple of different things when I'm getting ready to go into an appointment. This includes what I'm hoping to get out of the appointment. Am I looking for, I don't know, I like tips to reduce my symptoms, if I'm looking for answers for specific questions, if I am nervous that my treatment isn't working as well as I want it to. So what do I want to get out of it? Two things I want to bring up. As you know, as an RA patient, our rheumatology appointments can be 3 months in between. And like a lot of stuff happens in life in those 3 months. So there's something I need to update my doctor on. If there was something that happened, or I'm worried about having a flare, something like that, like what do I want to tell my doctor has happened? And then the last big thing is, what questions do I have? And this can be anything from, I'm thinking about going on a trip. Do you have any tips for how I can reduce my symptoms during that trip? Or it can be, I am experiencing an increase in this specific symptom. Do you have any idea what could be causing that? Is it worth going to, like, especially if it's an RA, issue, like, should I be talking to my foot surgeon so that he can tell me if the problem in my foot is arthritis or something else? Because I have a lot of issues in my feet, and his goal is all about that. And sometimes it can be way more general. Like, I think my symptoms are getting a lot worse. What should we be doing? Should we be changing my treatment? Should we be adding or decreasing, increasing the frequency, anything like that? All of those things are so important. And, for doctors, even the ones that care about us, the ones who like genuinely care about our well-being mentally and physically, we are there 9 o'clock. They've got other appointments that day. They've got other patients who they also care about. But for us, that 9 o'clock appointment is our whole week. It's our whole month, our whole 3 months. Yeah. It's been building up to that. And you want to get the most that you can out of it. And I cannot tell you how many times in my life I have felt that I didn't need to write down anything before going into an appointment. And then my doctor throws me a curveball and I've forgotten everything that I needed to talk to him about, because he goes, yeah, so this blood test is looking weird and I'm worried about XYZ. It's like, oh, I've never considered XYZ. And then I've completely forgotten that I wanted to talk to him about my swelling. So it's been really helpful for a couple of reasons, but that is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's an amazing point you bring up, because there's been moments when I'm like, oh man, I should have brought that up. And I'm like really hard on myself afterwards. But then there's a lot of people out there who get, like you said, scared or nervous or like anxious. And leading up to that appointment, they may freeze and they may get so I don't know if I should say this, that they don't do anything like productive that day. So my question is, have you brought people with you to your appointment? Or do you sort of go on your own now because you're kind of like a pro at this? Or do you feel that you still need someone there, even though
it's a mix? It's a mix of both. Actually, for people who don't already follow me or know me, I actually lived with my parents from 2014 to this fall 2021. And so I just moved out. I'm independent again after a really long time. And so, especially with having virtual visits, I don't have someone with me for those as much. However, if there are appointments that are really important and I think that I might need someone to help advocate for me or help me advocate for myself, I'll have someone with me, and that goes for virtual and in-person appointments. Additionally, while it is absolutely so frustrating and should not be true, et cetera, there is research that proves that doctors listen to female patients less well than they listen to male patients. There's been research that proves this. So if there is a really big issue, or we, being my parents and I, are worried that a doctor is not taking me seriously for whatever reason, or might not take me seriously, my dad will come with me. Not only does having him make sure that nothing gets missed, whether it be because they don't listen to me or because I forget stuff, having him is there for that. But also, my dad is an extrovert who has watched me be bulldozed by doctors so many times, and he and my mom will not stand for it. Again, there was a 9-year period where I had RA symptoms and wasn't diagnosed. I was diagnosed with my foot condition during that time, but knowing what we do now about the location of my pain, the location of arthritic damage in my foot, we know that a good portion of that pain was RA and not the tarsal coalition. My parents watched their daughter be completely torn down by doctors across New England. And for those who don't know me, I'm in the Boston area. I am an MGH patient. I have gone to the best doctors in the country. That does not stop them from being human. That does not stop them from looking at me as a 14-year-old and saying or thinking, but saying did happen, she's a high school girl who's trying to get out of school. And
Wow.
because of those years, my RA is as severe as it is. When I was diagnosed, I had arthritis in over 50 joints. I have 7 chronic illnesses. Almost all of them I have developed as a result of having RA. I am on cholesterol medication because I have high cholesterol from long time inflammation. I haven't eaten dairy in 10 years. I rarely eat red meat. Like, it is 100% inflammation. A lot of these things we can only do so much, but one thing we can do is make sure doctors listen to me now. Make sure that I don't forget things when I have crucial appointments that we waited months for. And in those times, I need someone with me to help me emotionally and also to stand up for me and to help me remember things.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the virtual aspect, because with my health too, I've been doing a lot of telehealth, but I've never brought on anyone on the video with me. So, I mean, not that I need to, but I know there might be new patients out there who, or people living with arthritis now that are newly diagnosed, that may want someone, but I don't know if that's even allowed. I don't know if that is something that you can even do because like of the rules. I haven't looked into that myself, but it might be something that other people should ask. And like you too, I've gone to the best doctors across, wherever here where I live in the Midwest in Chicago and at Mayo Clinic. And I was also told really horrible things too. So the accolades and the awards don't really matter. It's the human, experience. And I know every room that you have with that doctor and the connection, the patient doctor relationship. And I wanted to ask about that right now, but every rheumatologist is different. Like the one that I see now, she doesn't care if I come like every 2-3 months. That's her sort of like time frame. The rheumatologist I had before, who really is an earth angel, he's not retired, wanted to see me every 2-3 weeks. Like that was him. Like he was so thorough and like wanted to see his patients, even if it was 15 minutes. And he like was, I don't know how he did it for all those years, but he was just like one of those people where I'm like, I felt kind of spoiled when I went to this new doctor, even though she's amazing too. But it's like, I even told her, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to, see you in 3 months when I'm starting a new medication. Like I rather keep tabs within, each month, that's just me, because I have always felt like weird going so long, not talking to them, especially during a new treatment. And that's what I didn't like in the past. And I don't want to do that now, So, I mean, I had some questions for you, and I'm going to see which ones those were first because I wanted to ask you these before, this ends. But I mean, what do you think, like, when it comes to patient doctor relationship is important? If you can, like, mention anything in regards to what you just said, is there anything else?
I think something that's really important is honesty, not just with the doctor, but with yourself. If you are trying to sugarcoat something or you think that a symptom isn't worth bringing up, so you don't bring it up, that doctor can't help you with it. And my rheumatologist tends to say, tell me what the symptom is, and I will decide if it's arthritis related or not. Because I have a tendency to go, oh, well, I've had some chest pain, but maybe it's I've been having an asthma flare recently. Maybe it's because I've been having trouble breathing. He's like, let me decide that for myself. So it's also really important to be honest with yourself. Tell them if it's not a big deal, then there's no harm done. But if it is a big deal and you didn't say it, then there can be harm done. The other thing I would say is, and this is kind of in the extreme, but don't be afraid to fire your doctor. If it's not working, if they're not taking care of you, if they're not helping, find a new one. Like, it's your life. You're the one living with their decisions. If they truly suck, find someone else. You don't
Yeah.
have to say, I fire you, but you can. It's
Right.
it's very rewarding. I've done it.
How many times have you done it? And how many rheumatologists have you seen since you found the one that's for you?
So my rheumatologist now is the one who diagnosed me. He's been my amazing godsend. However, when I met him and he diagnosed me, he was at MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital. And then a few years ago, he left to go to a different hospital that was about 40 minutes away from Boston. And it was far enough away that I was just like, okay, MGH is good. It's worth trying the new rheumatologist they assigned me. However, they assigned me a fellow who didn't really feel confident with her own doctoring skills. And she would say one thing and then she would change her mind and say something else. And she really, truly screwed me over in ways that I won't get into. But I finally had enough. And when she had said, yeah, she told me later that she didn't think I had RA. And so she ordered all of these tests to prove, and each test proved that I had RA, and she would order another one just in case. And finally it got to the point where there was so much proof and she was finally going, all right, I believe you. And I said, like, I never want to talk to you again. I am done with you. I
Oh
fire
gosh,
you. Good day. And I called
good for you.
I went back to my rheumatologist that I'm back with now, and I'm crying on the phone, please take me back. And he said, Miss Mitchell, I'm not the one who said you couldn't be my patient anymore. Of course you can come back. And it was, your rheumatologist is so important. And if you have one who's just okay, it totally makes sense to not fire them and find someone else, because it can take time and money. But if you have one who is flip-flopping and going back on things they said and just generally being not good, then you absolutely should fire them and find someone else.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I didn't really ever fire one, but I just ended organically because I'm like, I ended up having a really bad flare. I'm like, I'm not going to go back to them because they weren't really responsive during that time. And that
Ooh,
was like a flare that really, really led like to my knee damage, and like you said before, inflammation, a lot of people tend to underestimate that too. They're like, oh, I'm just in pain, I'm inflamed. But with rheumatoid arthritis, that can act really fast. And if that's not controlled, that will cause damage for you. And unfortunately, with our diseases, there's not much you can do other than surgery. Stem cell isn't really up and coming yet. And there's a lot of other things that aren't really there for us. right? So you have to control the inflammation. And like you, I don't eat red meat and dairy either. I mean, at the times I did, I'm sure it fueled things, but there's other things at play. It's not just that, there's
Yeah.
so many things that we do to help control the inflammation. And then I just wanted to see here, like, I guess, like, what is the best advice that you can give someone? And you may have already answered this, but if they're a new patient, if you've already answered this, we can skip it. But like, what is the one thing, like, for someone who's just newly diagnosed or doesn't even know what they have yet, but they're in the limbo process? What would you say for them to do? Like, what's one thing that you wish you could have done?
So I will fully admit this is kind of hard to do when you're just starting out and you're figuring everything out, but trust yourself. If something is bothering you, something is bothering you. If there is a problem, don't try to explain it away. Be honest with yourself about your symptoms. Be honest with yourself with how you're doing, at the very least, when you have a doctor's appointment. Your doctor might be an expert in their field, but you are the expert in you.
Yeah, and that's what they say, like, for advocacy, like, we are experts as well. We may not have gone to medical school, but we are living with our bodies 24/7, 365 days of the year. So we know a lot that goes on, right, with us. And it kind of goes back to like your intuition. Like, if you feel like something is intuitively wrong, you have to listen to that hunch. And did you ever have moments like that before your diagnosis that you felt like something was kind of off, like intuitively, before you kind of knew all this?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, or all these years that doctors didn't believe me, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I went to my foot surgeon because we didn't know really about the RA yet, but we knew things were wrong with my foot. And so I went to a foot surgeon and he was like, yeah, things are very obviously wrong. I've done all these different types of surgeries. Things are wrong. Well, but because of there's so many bones and tendons and muscles in your foot, the imaging wasn't showing a lot. Not to be too graphic, but when they opened me up for surgery, they thought there was just going to be a small, maybe medium bone issue, but there was that bone issue. Also major arthritic damage to my foot. There was my cartilage looked like a cotton ball pulled apart. There was scar tissue. I had to have a synthetic bone graft, 2 4-inch screws put in my foot. And a year and a half later, I was diagnosed with RA. But that surgery, the fact that I had been saying for years, something is wrong, I'm having trouble walking. And all these doctors were saying, it's fine, you're fine, it's just a small thing. That moment convinced me, no, I know what's wrong. And I have never doubted myself ever again.
Did you ever go like to Dr. Google, like a lot of people used to say back, a couple of years ago, and try to figure out like what was wrong ever? I know I did that and it wasn't a good idea. I don't recommend. But when I did do that, I'm like, this is what's wrong. I knew it.
Yeah, I didn't do it for my foot issue or my arthritis. My foot issue is fairly rare, so I knew that wasn't going to be helpful. But when I developed POTS, or postular orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, in 2017, I had some friends who had it, so I knew kind of what the symptoms were. But it took about 9 months between when I developed symptoms and when I was diagnosed. And I was in and out of the ER because my heart rate was going to 200, and it was a whole thing. And we did a bunch of like tests to make sure it wasn't like an endocarditis or inflammation or myocarditis, any of the inflammation of the heart issues that could be happening with RA. And all of the imaging looked fine. Everything looked fine. So I was like, okay, imaging is fine, high heart rate, my friends have POTS. And so that helped me figure it out. But this was also, like the amount of resources available online, not just by patients like you or me, but also by, medical journals or hospitals or all sorts of stuff. It's improved a lot in the last 5-10 years. And when I was diagnosed with RA, it was 2010, and there were a lot of resources available, but nothing like there is now.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much noise now that you have to also use discernment with what you
Yeah.
take in, right? But yeah, I agree. Like I remember in 2005 when I was diagnosed, there was only a few blogs, online forums like on Yahoo or Google where people would go. I mean, YouTube wasn't really on the scene yet. Facebook wasn't on the scene yet. Instagram, none of these things that we have now. So it was kind of like a 0 to 100 for me. Like I know what that was like back then, but I also know what it's like now. Obviously, we're living in it, but I feel like sometimes it gets too much now, so it's like, when do you draw the line, and when do you also just go talk to your doctor and not read what's online or read what someone else is doing, I mean, when it comes to like social media and stuff, do you ever find yourself comparing yourself to others at all? Or, in regards to kind of what you've gone through, what they share, you know?
Yeah. I mean, one of the great things about social media is that there are so many ways for you to find people who have gone through similar things to you.
Mhm.
And so I think it's human nature to compare ourselves to others. But I really try not to, because every patient is different. Even the patients, and this is something I've learned through social media, is there can be other people who have the exact same illnesses as me, or like a very, very close match, and we could have wildly different symptoms or lives. And so I think it's especially, especially if I'm having a really, really hard time, it's very easy to be like, oh, I can't believe so and so is able to do this. Like, it's not fair. But I catch myself and I try my best not to compare myself, because it does a disservice not only to myself but to the other creators and people out there who are sharing their experiences. And at the end of the day, again, we're all different. You can put 5 people in a room with the exact same list of conditions, and they'll have 5 wildly different cases. Might be have similar, like pain, swelling, fatigue. That stuff is going to be similar, but how it affects their lives and how it shows up in their bodies is going to be different.
Yeah, that's so important, because also social media is a blessing in a way, because you can see what someone is posting and then you're like, oh my God, that's what I'm experiencing, and then bring it up to your doctor. So, like
Exactly.
you can learn so much from someone. Or if like someone reads your blog post, for instance, or sees something you post on Instagram, which you have amazing things on there, they'll be like, okay, I need to start doing this. And then they'll get a notebook, they'll get organized like you, and they'll start writing things down. So, like I said, I wish I had, connected with you when I was diagnosed, because I would have like taken up your organizational skills, because I'm organized too, but oftentimes I've had to learn things the hard way too. I haven't always been like one that was advocating for myself, speaking up. We had said, I would forget things, because also when you're at the appointment, let's say you're getting a cortisone injection, your mind is seriously going to go away from your questions and concentrate on the needle that's going into your finger or your knee or somewhere, you're going to be not
Exactly.
focused. So, yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, good and bad to everything. You just have to find what works for you. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to share with people before we head out? I mean, I guess
I
like,
mean,
oh, sorry. I guess I want to add,
no.
like, if there's any organizational tips, you can share those too.
Um, so what I would say is find the system that works for you. And it could be the notes app on your phone. It could be a notebook. I actually have my planner that has note pages in it, and I use those to take notes for my appointment, so that I have it with my planner, and so it's all in one place. That's not going to work for everybody else. Plenty of people aren't paper planner people. But at the end of the day, I think it's so important to see all of the different resources that different people put out there and pick and choose what works for you. So if my system doesn't work for you, I'm not going to be offended in the slightest, because you're not living my life and I'm not
Right.
living yours. But if the idea can help you in a way that's more your style, amazing.
Yeah, because I've known people who have taken like recorders to their appointment and they record the session, or if they're not big writers because their hand hurts,
Right.
and they'll have a family member take notes. Or, I know for me, like I have different folders, accordion files and stuff like that, where I put all my records in too, because I think it's important to have all your records from previous doctors. So you have that for the new doctor or, whatever. I mean, I have records from 2010. I'm not throwing those out because those are things that I had to take time to do. And so if I can have records for them, keep them. I'm sure you do the same, right? Or maybe not. I don't know.
I have x-rays of my foot from like 2008 in my closet at my
Me
parents'
too.
house.
Yeah, I think last year when I was cleaning, I found my first hand x-rays. I was like, wow, it kind of made me sad because my hands are not like that anymore because I have issues with my hands.
Right.
You have issues with your feet. We all have issues in some area.
Yeah.
We don't know why exactly, but yeah, it was just interesting to see that. And that was from 2005, 2004. So, but yeah, I mean, it's good to have that. So, but yeah. All right. Well, Kate, thank you so much for coming on. It was great talking to you. I hope this is going to be helpful for everyone who watches or listens. You don't have to watch us. You can listen to us as well. But
Well,
yeah.
and thank you for having me. And I'm so glad that we got to connect again and that I can share some of these strategies that I've developed over the last 20 years.
Yeah. And definitely, if you guys want to find Kate, connect with her. All her links are going to be in the description box below.